Hey there, Jim Brees here from Green Growth CPAs, and today we're going to talk about conducting functional interviews for your cannabis company to streamline your workforce. Now, as you grow the company and you hire people and hire contractors, you're going to start to see that there's some overlap and redundancy in job duties. Now, this is just wasting money. So what we're going to do in this presentation is explain to you functional interviews and why they're important, and then what specific questions to ask each and every one of your people from top to bottom within your organization to reduce that redundancy, figure out systems you need to implement, maybe even bring in some software to again streamline and organize your business so that you're not wasting any extra dollars on people or on the workforce. Now, if you need help with conducting these functional interviews, then please reach out to Green Growth CPAs by visiting our website at greengrowthcpas.com or give us a call at 800-674-9050. Let's hop right into the presentation.
So today's topic is using functional interviews to reorganize your cannabis company. Again, my name is Jim Brees here from Green Growth CPAs, and as you know, as you grow your company, you start to hire a lot of people, and there is some duplicate work being done. And you want to optimize and streamline your company, and what you're going to do is use functional interviews to reorganize and make a streamlined workforce for your cannabis business. But before we hop into that, I need to let you know that the information contained in this presentation is meant for guidance purposes only and not as professional legal or tax advice. Further, it does not give any personalized legal, tax, investment, or any business advice in general. So with that out of the way, let's review what we'll cover today. So first, we're going to talk about the next phase of the cannabis industry. And this is relative to where you're at today, but we're talking to current operators that are expanding and growing their business. We'll break apart some thoughts about what you're seeing the big boys having happen in their business, and then what you need to do and consider going forward. Then we'll discuss what functional interviews are, why you should conduct them, and then we'll also review specific questions to ask when you're doing these functional interviews so you can unpack your business and get color and context to what is actually happening within your workforce. And then lastly, we'll give our final thoughts on reorganizing your company. So the next phase of the cannabis industry. So this here is for the current operators that are growing their business. Maybe they're acquiring other businesses. And as you see the industry mature, there are mergers, there are acquisitions. And what's going to happen when you start to bring a few companies together or you start to expand into different licenses and different verticals, you're going to need to reorganize to improve the operations as well as reduce the overhead costs of the people. So one of the goals here when you're conducting these interviews is to reduce costs and improve the numbers of your business. Essentially, trim the fat, right? There are some things that are just redundant and you're paying more and more for 6 people to do 8 parts of one job. And it's such that can we improve this system or focus one person so they can become specialized in this instead of having 3 or 4 or 7 or 8 generalists touching on a specific task. And what you're seeing right now in the industry is even MedMen, they announced a 20% corporate workforce layoff. That's 190 employees that they laid off, reorganizing the business, improving the financials of the business. And Candescent, a large commercial cannabis cultivator based in California, recently laid off 14% of its workforce and froze hiring for another 6 positions due to lack of funding. As you understand, the cannabis industry is incredibly cash intensive, and one of those higher burning things is the people of your business, right? You want to take care of them, you want to give them the benefits and a livable wage, especially in California, which is potentially 75% higher than what it is in the middle of the country. It can be very expensive to have a lot of people, but you need people to run the business. So what you're going to see as these companies expand, they have to contract. What goes up must come down a little bit. And so you're seeing these corporate layoffs. Now, reorganizing can be a very difficult and painful process, but it doesn't have to be. But it's also sometimes necessary for cannabis operators to survive. If you have no money to make payroll, then you don't have a business. You'll be out of business in a month. So if you're faced with the prospect of downsizing or merging with another cannabis business, there's a good chance that you'll need to decide who to cut and who to keep on. So during rapid expansion, especially in that explosive growth of a startup, it's easy to hire a lot of people that duplicate the work. And in the grand scheme of the business, again, that can cost you money that you don't need to spend. And I understand, my team understands, firing people can be painful, but again, it's necessary. The right people are imperative to a business's success. And this is where functional interviews come into play. So, what is a functional interview? At the base, a functional interview is used to assess an employee or candidate's knowledge, skills, and experience. Now, many companies use these functional interviews during the hiring process to understand if a person has the capabilities to perform a job, but you also see this in companies where there's a lot of employees and we need to understand, are they all doing the right job? Are they hitting their job description duties? Is there overlap? And what's really going on with the workforce? I'm guessing you've seen Office Space, right? Where they bring in those consultants and everyone goes into the conference room and they interview them. Hey, tell us about your job and this and that. Those are functional interviews. Now, functional interviews can also include a culture fit interview where the questions are designed to see if an employee or a candidate, their personal and work style is a good fit for the hiring organization's culture. So do they fit into your company? Do they jive with the rest of the people that are there? Do they have the same mindset, right? Culture is one of the most important things. You can teach somebody how to do the job duties, but if they're a bad person, that's cancer to the culture and that cancer needs to be removed. Now, functional interviews simply, again, are just to learn what people do, how they view their job and their work environment, and what value that they add to the business. And cannabis operators can use these functional interviews to find who to keep on board. And usually you have an outside consultant, your management team, or an HR team conduct these interviews. And if you're in the merger and acquisition portion of a business, it'll usually be the acquiring company that will send out their consultant, their management team, or their HR team to bring on these people and see who to keep, what's redundant, and that's the people that we cut. Now, why you should do functional interviews. I've kind of alluded to a few of these here, but let me break it down a little bit further. Simply, it's really hard to achieve positive cash flow in the cannabis industry for a variety of reasons, right? The heavy burden of taxes, of licensing, and all the real estate that comes along with it, the manufacturing equipment, and everything else, right? So you need to find where you can slim down on cost, which is pretty easy to do when you see 10 people standing around at a corporate office talking about whatever at the water cooler when it's like, yo, we need you guys to get to work and add more value to the business. Now, by the end of the functional interview, the business must clearly understand what each employee does on a day-to-day basis. Things like how well does each employee perform their job? How does the team work together? And how do employees perceive each other? So throughout the process, you're going to use functional interviews to find three things. First, find any unnecessary overlap in roles between team members. Second, identify any gaps in processes that need to be filled. And then third, find ways that the company could improve from the perspective of the employees. Now, each stakeholder in the business, whether that's an executive or someone on the front lines working in the retail, those people in the business have their own unique take on how the operations can be improved. So entertain every idea, weigh each opinion's merit, and implement the ideas that seem most helpful. Now, you may not get it right every time, but you have to test to grow your company. Now, make sure when you're going into these functional interviews that you have an end goal in mind before even starting. This way, you can assess each idea that you hear within the interview in relation to where you hope to end up to that goal, right? So having goals will also offer guidance on which questions to ask. So some goals could be, do you hope to recover a certain amount of salary back into your budget? Or maybe you're looking to close certain areas of the business and redistribute talent and let people go. You see very often some people have all the verticals. They have retail and manufacturing and distribution, even cultivation. When you start to look at your income statement, the consolidated financials, you start to think, okay, well, something's not right here. We're losing money, but it's not every segment of the business. So when you start to peel back and unpack the balance sheet and the income statement, maybe you realize it's one particular aspect. Maybe it's cultivation. So you're interviewing all those cultivation people to see, hey, do they know any other cross-functional duties? Can they fit here or there? Or are they just a cultivator and they don't have any other place within our business? So understanding why you're doing this specifically for your company will help you guide the questions to ask. And finally, make sure that you have each employee's job description with you before you begin. Now, this will help you compare their actual work against their assigned responsibilities to objectively measure their performance. The best end result may not be to fire someone. Can you move that team member again to a different role where they will thrive based on their skills and what they know about the company? Another thing to think about is, are there any job functions that you can assign to help the team reach its goals? Or maybe will rewriting the job descriptions set people up for success? So keep these questions in mind as you assess your onboarding talent or your current talent at your business. So now that you understand what functional interviews are and why you should actually conduct those for a growing business that's seeing also explosive growth or a lot of hiring, let's talk about specific functional interview questions. Now, in the process of helping a few of the Green Growth CPA's clients, we've learned that some questions can help assess on-the-job performance. So again, depending on your goal, here are some things you may want to ask to your existing team members. So first, how long have you been with the company, right? You may not know everybody within the business, so start with the basics. Build some rapport and trust, and don't dive into the heavy stuff right away. These interviews can be quite intimidating for the members that are being interviewed. Other things you can ask, like what's your current title here? Do you like working here? Simple things like that to kind of break the ice, lower the walls, so that you can start to ask the other questions. Next, ask what is a typical day or week for you in your job? This question helps you get an understanding of how an individual uses their time, what specific tasks they complete, and whether or not that matches their job description, again, which you should have on hand while you're doing the interview. Next, ask them, how does your job add value to the business? So this allows them to really look back on what they complete and what tasks they do and see, do they understand how their role contributes to the business? How does it help the business grow? How does it help the business create more value, more revenue, or cheaper costs? Things of that nature. You want someone that can clearly articulate their value to the business. They're pretty much, I don't want to say fighting for their job at this point, but they're showing examples of exactly why you should keep them on in your business. Next, you should ask them, what do you think you're being measured on by your manager? Now, this helps them see if they know what they should be focusing on, and when you interview their manager, is the manager actually looking at the right KPIs for their team? Now, if you're speaking to a manager, then also learn if and how they measure their direct reports. It's very easy to get caught up in a conversation. A manager comes to a C-level or to a senior manager and says, oh, Michelle is doing such a bad job, or Mike has got a bad performance. Well, maybe that's just one person's view of it, and maybe they're not measuring them by the right things. They don't even know how to measure their subordinates. So getting information from both sides, triangulating an opinion, can really help you make sure you're making the right personnel decisions. Next, you want to ask them, what's the hardest part of your job and what's the easiest part of your job? What this allows you to do is learn about what they find challenging and then uncover any issues with certain processes or job functions. For example, if 3 out of the 5 people bring up not being able to keep up with all the clients that they work with, well, then maybe it's time to implement a proper CRM system. Now, if they say, hey, this is the easiest part of my job, I love this part, and then you talk to other departments and they don't have that same system or tool, maybe it's time to buy more seats or buy more licenses for a specific software that allows the second team who has a very hard time with that same task to feel some relief and to get some more optimization within their team. So it's just about finding what is the friction in the business and what's the smooth sailing parts of your business. And lastly, ask them what's working at the business or division that you're in, and then what's not working. It's a little bit similar to that hardest part of your job or easiest part of your job, but it gives a more 30,000 foot approach and allows them kind of the leeway to talk about maybe personnel, or maybe it's talking about systems, or maybe it's talking about specific clients, things like that. These are for general improvements that can be made for the business, and also lets you know, well, look, this is what we can double down on. 90% of people say they like this specific aspect of our business and this is what's really working. Hey, we should really triple down, double down on that. Now, this is where you start to see all the different levels of people and how they perceive your business. You could be running a few dispensaries, and the people that are at the front lines dealing with the customers versus the people that are managers and just counting cash and making sure that the payroll's being met and all the people are being paid out, they're going to have different views. And sometimes those people on the front lines never get heard from. Now, this allows them to share their thoughts that they may be sharing to the general manager, but it doesn't get up to the C-level team or to the senior team there. This allows you, again, to get in the front lines or get in the middle and see what's really happening and how you can improve your business. Now, this is not an exhaustive list of questions, and you should ask follow-up questions. Pry a little bit deeper into the hardest part of their job. Ask them, why do you think you're being measured on this specific aspect of your job? Or why do you think the business does that if they say that's really not a good thing and it's not working for their business? Getting some context to their answers and that follow-up question, right? These questions are just used to start a discussion. It's not just a drilling down into them. Have a two-way conversation with the people that you're interviewing. Now, once you've interviewed your entire workforce, or a division of your workforce, or a segment, or a vertical, or wherever you're at, you need to look at reorganizing your cannabis company. Now, after you get all the information from the functional interviews, you need to triangulate the data that you got with the end goal from the onset of these interviews, right? Why did you even sit down to do this? Again, was it to recover cash? Was it to reallocate people? Was it to cut a specific division? What was it going to be, right? So when you think about, will you be cutting a certain amount of salary costs, then if yes, collaborate with your senior team and consultants to choose who stays, who goes, and who gets reallocated to another function of the business. Now, if the goal was to improve the systems of your business, take time to collectively understand the interview responses and then see which processes need to be optimized, what tools need to be purchased, or what consultants need to be brought in for a deeper dive into a specific aspect of the business. Now, it's very easy to get overwhelmed in the reorganization process, so really give yourself the thought that there's no one way to respond or one right way to respond to what you found during these interviews. Each organization is unique in its needs, and it's up to the senior team or the managers to make choices that are best for the company. And you'll never know. If you took choice A, you can never know what choice B. There's no crystal ball where you look back and say, well, what if I would have done this or that? Make a choice, stick to it, have conviction and confidence, and go down that path. And if you make a mistake, have the humility to say, hey, I was wrong, or we were wrong, let's try this instead. It's okay to change your mind. Just try something, do something, move forward. If you want different results, you have to do different things. Now, hopefully this presentation has brought you some value so you understand the purpose of functional interviews and how it can improve the operations of your cannabis business. Now, if you need help with reorganizing your cannabis business workforce with functional interviews, we have deep experience in this. We've helped many clients optimize and reorganize their workforce. So reach out to us via our website at greengrowthcpas.com or give us a call at 800-674-9050. We understand that it can be a very tough thing to let people go or go through the process of digging deep into your business. You may see things that you don't want to know, but it's a necessary step for the business to grow. The strategy that got you from point A to point B will not take you from point B to point C. So if you need help with this process of conducting those functional interviews to reorganize your cannabis business, then please reach out to Green Growth CPAs via our website at greengrowthcpas.com or give us a call at 800-674-9050. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.